So my podcast setup is currently in progress. As you can see, I don't
Hmm.
even have my microphone right now. So I just
Exactly.
try to get in a good quality headphones. So the system that I was using to record my podcast, it's currently like it's not working properly. So I'm still
Okay.
figuring out. It's this
And
thing, like when you're a content creator, you keep getting so many problems or like
exactly,
challenges, if I can
exactly.
call it.
And the same thing I was talking in my recent podcast with guest. Being a content creator, it's not easy job. You have to, be
Yeah,
like you have to cut your dream to be a content creator. Like you want to go have a party night, so you can't do it because you are a content creator and you
yeah.
have to put content for that day, another day. So it's a
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
job to be a.
exactly. Another thing is the hard part is not being a content creator. The hard part is being a creator even when you're not getting anything in return. So if you see, I've seen a couple of your stuff, and the one thing that I admire a lot in you, or like people who want to do something, it's
Hmm,
that like it's this taking these blows, like constantly
exactly.
you are not getting reward. Like if I can ask you if you're
Hmm,
getting paid with the content you create, or if you ask me if I'm getting paid with the content that I create, we are not, right? Like we
exactly.
are doing something else to make money and we're still pursuing it. So
Exactly.
plus the second hard thing being a content creator is it's hard to gain traction by making good content.
Exactly.
Let's say you and me, we just spent half the time, not even the complete time that we put in into making some clickbaity stuff, like like doing these pranks, or like asking girls some nasty questions. Like if that's there in your thumbnail, obviously that gets a lot
Exactly.
more
Exactly. Exactly.
traction than you being like, okay, do this to gain traction on social media, or like this is how you create awareness for your brand. If you know what I mean.
Yes, I would like to add something. I was watching a reel on reel on Instagram. There was something there was a person who was talking about that he is working on his dream, but he's not getting paid right now. So we can connect with this. We are working we are creating content to pursue our dream. Yeah, maybe that we are not getting right now paid. So in future or somewhere we'll get paid, not exactly right now. So that is our
Yeah,
dream कि हमें content creator बनना है. We have to be a content creator और हमें दूसरों की life अच्छी करनी है content through और we can make it more better. So it is our dream.
yeah,
That's why we are pursuing as a content creator and we have something to
yes.
share with someone.
Absolutely. And for all the people who is listening who don't know who I am, I'd like to
Yeah,
give a short
sure,
intro.
sure.
So
I
I
forgot
am
to
assuming
ask.
that no worries. So I am Sankarshan Joshi. I host a podcast called A Sankarshan Joshi Trip, where
Hmm,
I bring in guests from various backgrounds, like whatever I'm curious about. I just have conversations randomly. Could be about like spirituality, could be about fitness, could be about business, anything and everything. I try to have uh, an interesting conversation. So that's about it from the content creation and my passion perspective.
hmm,
And by profession, I am a designer. I'm a user experience designer.
great.
So yeah, that's what I do to make money.
So as of
And
now, how many podcast guests you have in your podcast?
I've done 49 episodes. I
49. Wow.
Yeah, I think
That's
48, 49
amazing. That's
episodes.
huge number.
Yeah, and now talking about it, I have had I've had a repetitive guess, so I don't think I can give a precise number, but I think it's
Just a random number. Random number.
I think more than 15 to 20.
15,
Yeah,
20. That's also a huge
yeah,
number.
yeah,
And repeated,
yeah,
that is a great because our if your podcast is good, that's why they are coming back and giving the intro or sharing their experience in that podcast.
I think even with you, right? Is this your second, third episode? Like,
Yeah,
what's
second.
this about?
It's my third, but first I recorded a podcast with a girl who was handicapped, and just due to some things I could not upload. But that is my
Okay,
third podcast with you. And before
okay,
this,
okay.
I was creating solo kind of content on my podcast on my
Hmm.
YouTube channel, and I was growing with that. And before that, I also more focus on LinkedIn and I have good audience on LinkedIn who is engaging with my content, and I'm also
That's
building
great,
my
man. Good for
personal
you.
thing.
Good for you, man.
Hmm.
Good for you.
Yes,
So, first of all, congratulations. So,
thank
in
you.
your previous podcast, I heard that you got married, and so I must
Thank you
say,
so much. Thank you so
so
much. And yeah, that's it. That is what.
that's about it. That's the intro.
Mm.
So,
Hmm.
do your audience know who you are, like properly?
Yeah, because I have
So,
been creating content since it's been like, if continuous I will talk about, then it's been more than four to
hmm,
five months in on YouTube,
okay.
and the podcast is along with that. So yeah,
Hmm,
they are, but I would like to tell, if you are going to post on your podcast, or so, my name is Sachin. I'm a social media marketer. I market through Facebook and Instagram basically, and right now working for Australian based client, that you can say international based client. So like generating their e-commerce sales, generating leads, like it's totally paid. And before this, I was working for Indian clients for multiple reasons, like managing their social media accounts, creating content for social media, also client servicing, everything in a, and also there was speed. But it's been 2 to 3 months I've been working for international clients and getting exposure there. So yeah, that is all about. And also I create content on Instagram, that is very less. I'm little focus on Instagram, but my main focus is LinkedIn, because as a being a professional, I have to be more over there. And also YouTube, when I realized that I was creating YouTube a long time with content, but when I realized now, before 4 to 5 months, I need to be there, because it is, if I build something over here, I can build anywhere. And that
yeah.
is, you can say, that is the father of all social media platform.
Yeah, I think that's why people consume a lot of content, right?
Exactly. There's, I was talking about in my previous podcast, that my father is on YouTube. My mother, my sister, whosoever is having phone, smartphone, everybody is on YouTube. But my father is not on Instagram. My father is not on Facebook, right? And also, and rarely on LinkedIn. That's why the main
Yeah.
focus is there.
Yeah. I think YouTube, it's it's a revolution, if I may call
Exactly.
it, because a lot of people learn, a lot of people do a lot of different stuff. People are making money on it as well. It's
Exactly.
a very, I think the best part about YouTube is it, like you create your own niche. So if you go talk to your dad, so he watches YouTube, right? Like a lot.
Exactly.
And if
Exactly.
you go ask him, there are a couple of people who is famous to him, and
Exactly.
you don't even know who they are. Like if you
Exactly.
come to me, if you ask me, I follow these people. So let's say my passion, like I love fitness, I love, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I so my audience, or like whoever I am audience of, to frame
Hmm.
it better,
Hmm.
my parents don't even know who they are. So it's this,
Exactly.
like YouTube is a bigger universe. In that there are small worlds. If I go to my mom has her own sort of
Exactly.
people that she
Like
follows.
maybe cereals, maybe cooking things
Yeah.
stuff. But like for me, like I most of the time I follow Gary V, and there are like these kind of stuff, like English stuff I follow most of the time. And maybe like, Gary V is the first person that I follow, and there are some motivational stuff that I watch. So these are the person that I follow. Yeah, I can connect with your word that on YouTube everybody has their own world.
Yeah.
So that is,
Yeah.
yeah, fact. Because my wife follows like serial type of stuff. I follow these like motivation, digital marketing, this kind of stuff over there. Somewhere around graphic designing.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I'm assuming that graphic design is a meat of what you do, right? Like, so
Exactly.
marketing is a process of selling something,
Hmm.
and like whatever you create, that like graphic design, building the content is plays a huge role, right?
Actually, my what is my role? I need a graphic designer, but that is not my end of. Like my motto is to my thing is to only create, market my product or service, whosoever is their product. I need a help of graphic designer to market. Like if I want a visual or video kind of stuff, then there is a need of graphic design in my field. And as I think you are a graphic designer, and you're I would like to know for something from your side. So your point in graphic designing.
So, so I did my bachelor's in design. So
Okay,
graphic design was one of a subject in design.
great.
So I think at the core of it all, right? Like forget graphic design, forget UI UX or web design or user experience design or like any design for that matter. We call that design and not art. So I think at the core of it all, right, there is a difference between art and there's a difference between design.
Exactly,
So
exactly,
art has no purpose. The only purpose for art is to express a certain thing.
exactly.
It is like when you look at art, you look at the art. Like that is the whole point. Like when you listen to a song, you
Hmm.
listen to the song. But design, it caters to people. Like design is something that you do to make people's experience better. So now let's say if we talk about like graphic design or any other thing, it becomes a tool of this thing being the core. So you are a like if you talk about digital
Hmm.
marketing
Like I
or
can
if
make
you
it as better, like simple. I think designing is a skill, and art is like a passion or expression. Is it
uh
uh, like
I
designing?
think
Anybody can learn
both
it.
are skill.
Hmm.
No, I think that art is also a skill.
Hmm.
Like let's say if you say painting or if you say drawing, even they are a specific skill set. But I think the point of art is not how do I put this, like when you're painting something, you don't paint it for people, right? Like you don't paint it being like, when I paint this,
Hmm.
it should make people's lives better. Like it's just an expression of artist. But design,
Exactly.
it's mostly
It's for
that
people.
you use that skill. Like
Hmm.
there is skill in both the places, but you use that skill to make people's experience better. So now let's say if you go to a mall, you entering the mall and you going somewhere in the mall, that's a physical experience, right? There
Exactly.
is a lot of design that goes there as well that we don't even know. It's called service design. So when you go to a mall, it's a big place, right? You shouldn't
Hmm.
get lost. So to have a better navigation, people design certain things like, where do you
Exactly.
have a map, where do you have a board. That's a service design. So I think, yeah, like the point of design is for people to solve a specific problem to make people's experience better.
Exactly. And art is something that like I'm an artist, then I express myself, and graphic designing is for the people to make their experience better. Exactly. That is true. So if like I have something to ask from your side. If one want to learn a graphic designer and want to pursue a graphic designer, so what is the way that he or she can follow?
Okay. So I say
Mhm,
that graphic design is a very specific medium.
mhm,
So graphic design is building, let's say you are a digital media marketer, right? I'll talk from your perspective.
mhm.
Social media posts or building a brand or creating videos. So these are specific items, right? And that
Right, right.
embeds in graphic design. So what I say is, don't be a graphic designer, be come a level above and look at that as a whole picture. So be a designer, I'll say, to solve a specific problem. So let me give you an example. Have you ever looked
Mhm.
at a brand and it just sat in your head, like you can never unsee it, like it's just there in your head?
Right, right.
So let's say when I say Red Bull, you say gives you wings, right?
Exactly.
Or when I say KFC, there is something associated with it. So I think that for you to be better at graphic design or anything, you have to be better at communicating your brand. So I
Exactly.
think that don't stick to this specific skill set called graphic design.
Graphic design.
Come above and think about communicating brand. I think that in the process of communicating your brand, graphic design is one tool. So I think that in future, Do you
It's
know
like a
Canva?
exactly. I use Canva to create my post because I'm a social media person. I'm not graphic
Yeah,
designer, so Canva
exactly.
made my things so simple.
Exactly. So that's why don't be a graphic designer because you're going to be replaced. So something that
Exactly.
cannot be replaced is your ability to
To
build
under
brand and communicate the brand, right?
exactly,
So
exactly.
in design, there is a specific field called communication design. And in communication design, there is a subject called graphic design. So I think
Exactly.
this is something that people should be very clear. So have you heard of UI UX?
Yeah, yeah. It's be a
User
part of.
interface and user
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm.
So it's web designing website, apps, and interfaces, right? So whatever is in the boom, we are tend to follow that and get that job right.
Right.
So I think that even UI UX designers also they think that designing apps, graphic design, we need to design this. If you're being specific to that, you are going to be replaced. So you need to think from the like a very bigger picture that is going to stay because see now
Like
before.
I believe that graphic designing is a communication that we communicate in a form of picture or a designing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that is the
Communicating brand and
hmm,
graphic design is one of the tool
hmm,
of that process. It's not the it's
overall.
not the yeah, it's not a bigger thing. It's a part of
Exactly.
a bigger thing.
Like it's a communication. Whatever I have a thought, I design it, I present it with my audience in a less
Yeah,
word or more word that can whatever it can take.
yeah. You have a strategy, right? So when you say when you are a social media marketer, you are marketing something.
Exactly.
There is a thing when you're marketing it for this thing to reach audience you use a lot of mediums like social media or graphic design is a tool like different things but when you're communicating a brand to the audience like you all sit and brainstorm like how do I do this, like how do I sell this, what unique flavor do I add to this, how do
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
communicate this. I think that is what people should focus on. And if they want to do like if they want to enter this field like they can do their bachelor's in design or they can do masters in design, they can study this process of understanding the user or like how to do better. Yeah, this is
So
how they
yeah,
can enter the field. To
exactly.
answer your question.
Okay, great, great. Like in my case, if one want to enter in social media stuff or digital marketing stuff, that that I believe 2 to 3 steps that they can enter through. First one is they can like learn a course from an particular institute that is very heavy course in the sense of money. So and second one is they can learn from YouTube and Google. That is the greatest stuff that anyone can learn through Google and YouTube and enter in this particular thing. And second one is a third one is they can learn from their friend and family who is a good designer and enter in this course. And the same thing I think that correlates with graphic designing, right?
So another thing that I want to add
Hmm.
to what what you're saying, I have a question for you.
So
So
sure.
you are a social media marketer, right?
Hmm.
Imagine that all the social media, like let's say Instagram or YouTube, they just shut, like they just closed. Like
Okay.
what would you do?
That is sometimes the same thing I also think about it like PM Modi, uh, PM Modi, what he has been doing past 5 to 10 years, just banning the app. Right. Previous year he banned like 50 to 60 some around. I have not right figure right. Remember 50 to 60 उन्होंने बैन कर दिए 150 200 ऐप बैन कर दिए. So I was thinking अगर Facebook and Instagram LinkedIn kind of social media platform बैन होते हैं, अगर LinkedIn बैन होता है तो उतना इफेक्ट नहीं पड़ेगा, but Facebook and Instagram बैन होता है, so what next? So
Yeah.
there is I think there is an answer lies in that. अगर if there is app going to ban के साथ, जैसे हमारे साथ क्या हुआ अभी टिकटॉक बैन हुआ तो रेल्स आया, देयर विल बी ऑलवेज अल्टरनेटिव.
No,
सो
but
सी
I'm so sorry that I cut you off.
ओके.
So the reason why I asked this question is
Mhm.
this is the difference between focusing on a tool and process than the bigger picture. So I think that you are a digital media marketer, right?
Right.
So what you are doing is you are taking a brand's message, their values or whatever they want, and you are bringing that to people. you're you're you are giving that to wherever people are, and in that process you are trying to think of various strategies like how do I make this
Hmm.
be seen to a lot of people, how can I do that, right?
Exactly.
So if you see from this sense, regardless of if there is social media, if there is YouTube or not, this thing is going to stay because
Exactly.
brands are going to stay.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think that anybody now, people are focusing a lot on, they're relying a lot on mediums like this. I think that is one of the major problem.
Hmm.
So let's say YouTube. A lot of people make money from YouTube, and YouTube is a corporate, like it's an owned entity. And there are a lot of algorithms which try to push certain things, and which that, okay, let's talk about vaccines, okay, for an example. A lot of people, let's say if YouTube believes a certain value, if they want to promote vaccination, and if someone else say something related to anti-vax, they try to push that content down. They like they don't let you monetize on that. So a lot of people face, like they kicked certain people off of platforms. So the reason why I'm saying this is, if we depend on certain tools, those tools will come to an end at one point. So we'll have to focus on the bigger picture. So that's why at the start of this podcast, that's the reason why I mentioned the difference between graphic design and something in a bigger picture. So the
Exactly.
same thing that I'm trying to mention, from you being like a social media marketer to you being a marketer of a brand. So like that is the bigger picture, right?
Got it. Got it. Like tool can be in, but what you are going to
Yeah,
build or what you have inside, it is going to be always there,
absolutely, absolutely.
right?
So
Because
now you create social media posts, right, for your brands.
exactly, not brands. I do
Do
not
you
create.
create?
I do not create right now. I do paid marketings. Like I generate sales for their e-commerce. I generate lead generation for them.
Hmm.
So that is what exactly.
Yeah. So in the process of generating leads, you push certain content out, right? Do
Exactly.
you so that could be a social media Instagram post, or
Yeah.
it could be a reel, right? Have you
Hmm.
ever done that? Have you ever used Instagram reels to promote something?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. That is what we I have been doing because through
Yeah,
Instagram Reels. Yeah. Through Instagram Reels, if like majorly what I do, अगर ये जो reels होता है for उसके क्या कहते हैं ज्वेलरी ब्रांड्स के लिए like fashion brands के लिए especially I do and fashion in the sense beauty brands के लिए you can do it reels promotions that is the best.
yeah.
Hmm.
So the point that I'm trying to make is,
Mhm.
few months back or like few years back, the concept of reels didn't exist. It came in as a tool, and then you evolved using that tool, right?
Exactly.
So now that's the exact point that I'm saying. Tools will come and go, new stuff will come. Like now, let's say filters, right? Like if you see, I don't know, what was the recent Akshay Kumar's movie, Bachchan Pandey? Like what's the
Bachchan Pandey.
movie's name?
Bachchan Pandey.
So he had
DP.
this, like, yeah, he has this character, right? Where
Hmm.
one of his eye is
Eyes.
slightly this sort. So have you seen filters of those, of that character on Instagram? So
Not remembering.
so what they did is they created a filter of that Bachchan Pandey character, and people started making reels putting that filter on.
Exactly.
So
He,
they are evolving, like they're using these tools. So they're using filters, like they're using AR, VR, like they're using a lot of different stuff to convey certain things. Like tools will come and go, new tools will come, you'll incorporate all of those, but the core remains the same
Good,
even after
exactly,
100 years.
exactly. What like a strategy? The strategy will be same, and the mindset, like people mindset will be same. Everything will be same, but just tool will come and go, new feature come and go, and everything will be constant. And exactly that skill, that mindset, whatever I have in my head, that will be same. And the way I apply, the way I generate sales and leads, that would be same.
Yeah.
And
You know, generating leads is basically getting people to buy that product,
exactly,
right? Getting people to buy that product. So people will stay, product will stay. You creating lead for the people to buy product, that process will also stay. In between all of this, social
exactly,
media,
exactly,
Instagram
exactly.
Reels, YouTube, LinkedIn, this will keep changing.
Exactly. Got it. Now got the point. That is now much clear.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing is that as a graphic designer, there are like as I think like in a social media, there are lots of myth that you cannot be on every social media platform. A brand cannot be there. So the same thing I believe that in graphic designing is also there. Like there are certain myths about graphic designing. Do as your experience, do you think there's something like in a in a myth about graphic designing? Do you wanna uncover?
I don't think
Look.
there are any myths, but I think that initially, when
Mhm.
we think about design or when we think about anything, we don't think about it as a bigger picture. Like we start off thinking like, this is what I want to do. So if you take filmmaking,
Mhm.
uh, so that was one of the subject in one of the courses where I was studying. So filmmaking, we think that it's about making movies, right? Like there is a process that goes behind it. So even with any design, like graphic design or user experience design, the process is very underrated. Like very few people know it. Like before anything design, whatever we see the end product, right? We just
Exactly.
fascinate over the end product. But there's a process that goes behind it that not a lot of people know. So for you to be a digital media marketer, I'll just stop using the word digital media or social media or anything digital mediums. I'll just say to market anything, any product, you need to have an understanding of people where people are. So for you to generate leads, you need to know where the crowd is. That's the
Exactly.
basic funda, right? So I think that requires an understanding of user. Like if you want to promote a brand, jewelry brand, who's the target audience, what's the age group, you need to have an understanding of that age group, right?
25 to
So
60 around.
yeah,
Hmm.
so now if you say, if you want to target people from 18 to 25, majorly you'll focus on Instagram reels because that's where
Hmm.
people are. If
Hmm.
you want to focus on corporates who are into business, who are a professional, you focus on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
So even in Facebook also, there are age specific ads. Like if you use Facebook's this thing, they
Hmm.
target uh, specific age group and they'll push ads there, right? So
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
that for you to do that, there needs to be an understanding of the end user. Who are you sending this to? Who are you selling this to? So I think that is an underrated thing that not a lot of people know. I don't know if this we can consider as a myth, but I think this is something not a lot of people uh, think about.
Okay. So just there is one thing that we are talking about Canva. You know, अगर कैनवा की बात करें और एज ए ग्राफिक डिजाइनर की बात करें, ग्राफिक डिजाइनर जो टूल्स यूज करते हैं लाइक कोरल ड्रॉ, फोटो इलिस्ट्रेटर, व्हाटएवर, लाइक फोटोशॉप,
Photoshop.
इलिस्ट्रेटर सो अभी के देखे मार्केट जो है लाइक खासकर इंटरनेशनल मार्केट जो है, दे ऑल यूज कैनवा फॉर देयर प्रमोशंस, their brand promotion or whatever it is. तो कहीं ना कहीं लगता है कैनवा is going to replace the graphic designer.
Absolutely. That's the whole point that I was trying to make, right? You need to focus on the bigger picture because you're going to be replaced. Aram se. So we need to, you should not be a graphic designer. You should be a designer. You should know how to solve a problem. You need to solve the problem. So I think at the core of it all, that is what being a designer is. And if you're a designer in the field of branding and communicating your brand to the audience, that you need to focus on. That requires a lot of skill, understanding of the user. That will stay. Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, these are just, see, you need to know how to paint. For
Right,
you
right,
to use brush, or like brush is a tool, right?
right, right.
You can use 10 different types of brushes, 30 different brushes will come in the future and present will go. People will stop using.
Right.
Painting is also evolving, right?
Hmm.
So
And
but you need to focus on the,
there's one
yeah,
thing that is now coming into picture, that is जैसे पहले होते थे फोटोशॉप एक्सपर्ट या ग्राफिक डिजाइनर एक्सपर्ट या जो भी है सीनियर, अब आते हैं, अब आपकी एक नया टर्म आ रहा है, कैनवा एक्सपर्ट. you know
oh,
there is a term that canva expert, canva designer, or canva designer expert. There's a new term that we can see in the market. I've been seeing as on Instagram and LinkedIn profile. सो वहाँ पे लोग अपनी मेंशन करने लगे, हम कैनवा एक्सपर्ट और कैनवा डिजाइनिंग एक्सपर्ट. तो
no, see, I'll tell you what. When you go to Canva, there are already templates ready, which is the designer's job. Visual. I think you need to have a sense of visual design, like what looks good, what doesn't look good. No matter how good tools you have, if you don't have that sense, there is nothing you can do. even for you to like what Canva does the best is colors are already there, fonts are already there. All you need to do is just replace the content.
drag and drop,
Yeah,
that we can say.
yeah. If you had to think what fonts do I use, where do I place this font, visually does this look good, then you're gonna have a problem. So I think that's where Canva like nailed it.
Yes, I want to break down some about Canva. जैसे कि हम देखते हैं कि Canva आने के बाद मार्केट में ज़्यादा कंपटीशन और सब कुछ होने लगा है, और कुछ लोग आई थिंक सोचते हैं, नहीं सोचते हैं, बट अगर देखें कि कैनवा के आने से इसका ये सीन नहीं होता कि ग्राफिक डिजाइनर का जॉब कम हो जाएगा या उसकी वैल्यू कम हो जाएगी, इससे और बढ़ जाएगी, बिकॉज कैनवा इज जस्ट ड्रैग एंड ड्रॉप थिंग। और किसी के आने से किसी की चीज़ें, लाइक टिकटॉक जैसे आया था तो ऐसा लगा कि यूट्यूब थोड़ा खतरे में पड़ रहा है या चीज़ें पड़ रहा है ना? तो दैट इज नॉट मीन कैनवा इज विल बी देयर फॉर नॉन ग्राफिक डिजाइनर, बट ग्राफिक डिजाइनर की जो वैल्यू है वो वैल्यू रहेगी, आई बिलीव।
No, I think that one thing is that you should stop putting tags. So I am this, I'm that. We say that, right? Like I'm this, I'm that. I think we should stop doing that. So I think that's something that I learned being a designer is we learn a lot of subjects. There is graphic design, there is this design, but then the moment you stop putting tags, right, there is a lot more that you can do. And like coming back to your point of this is replacing or not, is just reducing manual labor. So imagine being someone, you're just sitting, you're putting the font there, you're putting color here, you're moving this there, moving that there. That's manual labor. But you need to, like the vision you need to have, right? Like, okay, this is what I want. And somebody will put that vision, like, see, this is what I want. And graphic designers and all these people will put that thing together. And that's actually manual labor. You need to be in a position where you are making those vision decisions and not doing the manual work. So if Canva is coming into picture, that is good for designers because it is reducing manual labor. Like it is reducing you spending a lot of time putting things together.
And
Now
also
you can
there
move
is a
one level
limit of
higher.
it is also, sorry, it is also there limit of Canva। Canva में आपकी लिमिट है, यू कैन नॉट क्रॉस इट, कि कुछ ही चीज़ें आप लिमिटेड कर सकते हो, बट इन द टूल ऑफ फोटोशॉप, इलिस्ट्रेटर और कोरल ड्रॉ there is something that you can go out of it, वहाँ
Yeah,
पे
yeah.
हमारे
And
पास।
also with this whole automation thing, right? It's we are moving to better jobs than manual labor. Like if we see few months back or few years back, there were a lot more like physical jobs that got replaced with
Exactly.
automation and all of that, right? So now we are doing better things, man. Like we should be happy about it. Like why do you want to sit and do like earlier a lot of people would put cement, right? Like now we have a machine for that. So
Exactly.
the same man force we
Machine
can
mixture.
move somewhere else.
Right, right. Before earlier, it was there were so much of chart in the office or government office, but now they have laptop, they have computer filling the form and everything maintaining.
Yeah, yeah,
अगर
exactly.
हमें कुछ form fill करना होता है, now we go on site and fill up the form, anything.
Yeah,
So that
yeah, yeah,
reduce the that you're talking about manual,
yeah,
work
yeah,
or labor force,
yeah.
AI and
Earlier we were
automation.
riding rickshaws, right? Earlier we
Exactly.
were riding rickshaws, and now autos have come, then cabs have come.
Now
Obviously,
Ola Uber
yeah,
came into the picture and making a big impact
absolutely.
in our market,
Yeah,
in personally and also professionally, and also in, and they are making good, and they made our life much easier. If you want to
absolutely.
go anywhere, just we have to click. And there's a great example, that is railway. Before, what we would be doing, हमें लाइन में लगना होता था, वो भी लंबी, अगर हमें टिकट चाहिए, we have to go a month ago or a week ago, और हमें लंबी लाइन में धूप में लग के उस लाइन में हमें टिकट निकलवाना होता था। अगर उसमें भी जाने के बाद लास्ट में पता चलता है कि हमें मिल रहा है कि नहीं मिल रहा है, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ स्टफ दैट यू आर फेसिंग आउट, बट नाउ व्हाट वी हैव टू डू, हमें टिकट चाहिए, आईआरसीटी पे गए, 2 मिनट के अंदर, विद इन द सेकेंड्स ऑफ 2 मिनट्स, 5 मिनट्स, हमने लोकेशंस ईच अपने फिल किया एंड गॉट द टिकट राइट नाउ, राइट अवे। सो दैट इज व्हाट ऑटोमेशन एंड एआई और टेक्नोलॉजी मेड थिंग्स इजी।
का सेंटर ऑफ इट ऑल ये है कि हम प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहे हैं अभी ये पूरा प्रोसेस में नाउ लेट्स से इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ बाइंग टिकट बहुत सारे मिडिलमैन रहते हैं इसमें
गॉट
मतलब
इट।
अगर अगर एक बड़ा लाइन है तुमको लाइन काटना है तो किसी को पैसा देना है so let's say if you want to buy movie tickets then before we used to buy in black so like if there are a lot of for us to achieve once something like let's say you want to buy movie tickets Earlier, what we used to do, we used to go to movie, stand in line, and in case if we don't get ticket there, we would buy tickets in black. So now that we got Book My Show, these people are starting to lose their job, right? Like the people who sell in black. The same thing in IRCTC also. There are so many middlemen, so many stakeholders involved that all these people, inka funda to khatam hua na abhi. So these people, whatever golmaal they were doing, that thing came to an end. So that's the same thing that a lot of people are going to lose jobs. Like
But
but at the end of it all, it's this user to get the task done. This thing, ये problem to solve होगा ही. And this is design. I think thank you for bringing this IRCTC example because earlier we were talking about graphic design being a specific part, right?
mm,
So now we have come to a much more bigger problem, which is solving a major problem that the
exactly.
user has. That is such a beautiful way that you put in simple terminology. That is what design is. That is what user experience design is.
Mm,
So Abhi, there is a user, whoever is using that product, and there is a certain task that the user wants to do. And in that task, what are the problems are there that you need to solve? So that is what user experience designer will do.
right.
So designing these apps or designing anything, that is an interface. You are designing an interface. Today it could be mobile phones. Tomorrow it could be smart watches. Day after tomorrow it could be like something like an Iron Man hologram where you're touching and moving stuff. So this thing will keep changing. Like
Exactly.
interaction, how you interact with will keep changing. Sorry, what you interact with will keep changing. But the process of interacting with something will still remain the same.
Exactly. There will be same process and same thing. And you know also the how I got this idea about railway station IICT. Actually, the Kunal Sa, you might have heard about him.
Yeah,
He's a
correct.
founder of Cred, founder of Cred. So he always talks about IRCT's problem. So I got this idea from there. Like he always talks about Delta 4, जो आपकी problem को like automation में चाहिए डाल सकता है. That is what Delta 4 and you can make money from there. So like जो Delta 4 से कम है को हम क्या कर सकते हैं? We can quit because Delta 4 से जो कम होगा वो पैसे आपको बना के नहीं दे सकता अभी या फ्यूचर में. लाइक ही गेव द एग्जांपल ऑफ रेलवे. अगर आप रेलवे को आज से 10 साल पहले या 5 साल पहले जो भी था उसको कितना रेट कर सकते हो और अभी कितना रेट करते हो. द एक्सपीरियंस राइट बाइंग
हाँ,
एक्सपीरियंस दैट
हाँ,
यू आर टॉकिंग. और सेम थिंग एक एक दो एग्जांपल उसने दिया था कि अगर आपको पहले कहीं जाना होता था तो आप जाते थे कहीं पे कार बुक करने के लिए, ऑटो बुक करने के लिए या बाइक बुक करने के लिए. और अभी का क्या है? सो हाउ यू
हम्म,
विल रेट दीज टू थिंग्स कंपेयर करके. पहले क्या होता था? जहाँ हमें जाना होता था हम उसके रोड पर जाते थे, वहां पे खड़े होते थे, फिर बस आती थी, फिर हम बैठ के जाते थे. सो हमें घर छोड़ के कहीं जाना होता था बैठने के लिए. बट नाउ व्हाट वी डू, हम घर बैठे ही ओला बुक कर लेते हैं.
हम्म,
और ऐसे जोमेटो स्विगी ने किया. हमें खाना मंगाना कुछ खाना होता तो हम क्या करते हैं? रेस्टोरेंट में वी हैव टू गो देयर.
हम्म,
पर यहाँ का डेल्टा थोड़ा सा जोमेटो स्विगी का इसलिए आई वुड रेट इट डाउन मिडिल ऑफ, क्योंकि अभी भी लोग कुछ होते हैं जैसे मैं क्या, इफ आई वांट टू गो विथ माय वाइफ है ना, मैं एक्सपीरियंस करना चाहता हूँ रेस्टोरेंट की, तो यहाँ पे डेल्टा 4 थोड़ा सा कम हो सकता है 4 की कंपैरिजन और अदर्स की, क्योंकि यहाँ पे
हाँ,
घर पे बैठ के मंगा के खाना मजा नहीं आएगा, है ना. जब
हाँ, हाँ,
वी
हाँ,
से इन अवर टर्म मजा नहीं आएगा. बट मैं रेस्टोरेंट में बैठ के अगर 5 स्टार रेस्टोरेंट में आज जाऊंगा तो भाई वाइफ है ना, वाइफ भी खुश होगी, 4 पिक्चर्स भी लेंगे हम है ना. सो यहाँ पे जोमेटो स्विगी का डेल्टा थोड़ा सा कम है, डेल्टा के जो चीजें है अदर्स के कंपैरिजन. बट इट इज ऑल्सो मेकिंग गुड इम्पैक्ट, खासकर
No, actually, I am so happy that you got this point up. क्योंकि जब लोग मुझे पूछते हैं ना कि मैं क्या करता हूँ डिजाइन, वो बहुत स्पेसिफिक टूल के बारे में पूछते हैं. मतलब तुम क्या डिजाइनर, तुम फैशन डिजाइनर हो, नहीं तो तुम ग्राफिक डिजाइनर हो, तुम क्या स्पेसिफिक पूछते हो. अभी you just got experience, right? Thank you for bringing that up because I like it just makes me genuinely happy because design is something very broad and not a lot of people know. And in this process, I'm sure when I'm talking, a lot of misconceptions you have are also changing. So ये at the ये experience design है ना, don't be a graphic designer, don't be a web or UI UX designer, be a experience designer. क्योंकि जब ये brand experience करते हैं ना लोग, वो experience को design करो.
एग्जैक्टली. आई
when
वुड लाइक टू
when
break
you
here
are
समथिंग, आई वुड लाइक टू put dive into it. ब्रांड को लोग याद क्यों कर लेते हैं, जस्ट
Hmm.
बिकॉज लाइक जोमेटो का मैं एग्जांपल दूंगा। आप हर एक चीज का जोमेटो का खासकर ट्विटर अकाउंट आप खोल के देख लो, यू कैन रिलेट टू इट।
Hmm.
रिलेशन मीन्स यू कैन एक्सपीरियंस इट, कि वट एवर इज
हाँ,
टॉकिंग अबाउट आई एम रिलेटिंग टू माई जनरल लाइफ, डे टू
हाँ,
डे लाइफ। दैट इज वॉट एक्सपीरियंस। सेम थिंग वी हैव टू डू विथ आवर डिजाइनिंग। वी हैव टू मेक आवर ऑडियंस कंफर्टेबल एंड मेक our share our
yeah,
experience and co-related with that। दैट इज व्हाट
yeah.
एक्सपीरियंसिंग विद, लाइक हमें उस अपने ऑडियंस को एक्सपीरियंस करा देना उस चीज, दैट इज व्हाट डिजाइनिंग।
हाँ, अभी हम कुछ साल पहले यूजर एक्सपीरियंस डिजाइनर बोल के एक टैग था। सो अभी whatever you design, website, mobile applications, that is called user experience design, like user experience designer. Now that is getting evolved into human experience design. So it is not
आफ्टर
just
मोबाइल फोन
about,
कमिंग इनटू आई थिंक।
no, not just when mobile phone came into picture only, they were using the words user experience design. Now they're going beyond user, human experience. When they're using your mobile app or when they're using your product, how are they feeling as a human? Are they feeling happy? Like it just embeds a lot of different points. I think that when you want to design a brand or when you want to market a brand, anything, you have to be an experienced designer where their experience becomes better. So now some marketing, right, some brands, they just stay, man. Like you just connect with it because it just evokes a certain emotion. Like your experience while using that product enhances. So,
इफ आई टॉक अबाउट इन द मार्केटिंग सेंस, अगर
hmm,
कोई भी ब्रांड है मार्केटिंग में, जोमेटो इज नंबर वन। जोमेटो
okay,
जोमेटो अपने मार्केटिंग के लिए ही जाना जाता है। अगर अगर उनके एम्प्लॉय की किसी की चोट लगती है, कोई भी डिलीवरी बॉय का कुछ भी होता है, ही रीच टू दैट पॉइंट। और
okay,
मार्केटिंग में लाइक उसके हमेशा जो ट्रेंड होते हैं ना, ट्रेंड अगर ट्रेंड कहीं से निकल के आता है, जोमेटो का पहले होता है, जोमेटो का
हाँ,
पहला ट्वीट होता है। कोई भी खासकर जो अब ट्रेंड्स निकल के आ रहे हैं वो जोमेटो से निकल के आ रहे हैं, जोमेटो को लोग फॉलो करते हैं इन द मार्केटिंग सेंस, बिकॉज
हाँ.
द मार्केटिंग इज वेरी वेरी, और उसकी हर
I
पोस्ट
think
वायरल होती है।
I think that you are a better person to get insights on this because I don't have much experience in that field, right? So now, if you are saying it, I'll believe what you say because you are in that field. So I think that people create values for their brand. Why? Because you want the user to experience those values when they're using your brand or products of your brand. So
Right.
I really like how this conversation is going currently because that is where I want this conversation to head initially when we started also. The bigger picture. So let's say Cred or Zomato or any brand that you take, fun, quirky, clothing brand, anything, there are certain values that are associated and they just sell that value. They just sell that value and all their. So the other day I watched KGF 2, the movie on nearby mall. Have you heard of Cinepolis?
Not exactly.
Cinepolis, it's a movie chain, like movie theaters chain. So I was watching an ad of theirs in that theater. So they showed very dramatically how the Cinepolis employees care for their customers. So anything you want. So there's this guy who is talking on the phone. His phone falls, and then an employee just slides and he'll hold the phone and then he'll give. Like someone is crying, they just dramatically come and give the tissue. So anything like you just come to the theater and we will take care of you. That is the core of the ad. And so when they're showing that, right, that is their value. Like they want to show that we care for the people who come to our theater, we care for the
Like they
people who
y-
come to
y-
experience it, and they wanted to sell this in their ads like anywhere. So at the end of this ad they put care police, and then the care goes, it comes Cinepolis. So that's the association they want to do with their brand. Like next time I think of Cinepolis, I want to be like, oh, the employees are going to take care of me. That's such a vague thing, right? Like you're going to watch a movie. You can talk about your seatings. You can talk about your experience. You can talk about like an out of the world experience, like 4D, 3D, something. But the niche that they chose is hospitality. Like you come here, we'll take care of you. They took that as an element and then they sold it. So I think that for people to remember your brand, they need something to associate with, right? Like they need a tag and that value. So now Cinepolis, Care Police, like if they want to care for all the people who come to their theaters, the same thing that they'll push in with their employees also. Like that will be in their values. They'll talk to the employees like, you guys
Right,
need to
right.
go talk to the customers. You need to be more welcoming. So they will push that value in their brand. So I think this
Right.
should, like this should be the core of anything.
Exactly.
Communicating the value, communicating the brands, what it stands for, and making sure people experience that.
Exactly. And I would like to add something over here. Like
Please do.
there are few things that like चार तीन चार चीजें होती है जिससे लोग अट्रैक्ट होते हैं, जिससे चीजें लोग कनेक्ट करते हैं. Like first is FOMO, that you can see in your ad that you are talking about. वो FOMO यूज कर रहे थे, like they were talking on the phone and phone is falling down. That is a FOMO. अगर आप नहीं करते हो, we do not, अगर आप हमारी सर्विसेज नहीं लेते हो, so that your phone आपकी टूट सकती है, खो सकती है, whatever it is going to, है ना. और दैट
Hmm.
फर्स्ट इज फोमो, जो मार्केटिंग में यूज किया जाता है. एंड सेकेंड वन इज कि इमोशंस, जो खासकर बड़े बड़े ब्रांड्स दिवाली पे करते हैं और कुछ किसी ओकेजन्स पे करते हैं. कि आपने खासकर ये ऐड ऐसा कुछ देखा होगा दिवाली पे, कि दादी माँ दिवाली पे वो दिए बेच रही है, उनका कोई नहीं खरीद रहा है, लाइट्स वाले खरीद रहे हैं, लाइट्स का ही सिर्फ खरीद रहे हैं. एक बच्चा आता है, उनकी हेल्प करता है, पूरे दिए खरीदता है, दादी माँ की भी खुशियाँ अच्छी हो जाती है. दैट इज इमोशन काइंड ऑफ, है ना, मार्केटिंग जो लोग यूज करते हैं, जिससे बहुत जल्दी रिकलेक्शन बनता है. आपने ये ऐड देखा, योर फोन फॉलिंग, आपको अब दोबारा वो ऐड नहीं दिखेगा, फिर भी आपको कई समय तक यू कैन रिमेम्बर इट. फोमो. एंड सेकेंड वन इज इमोशन. ये ऐड जो है मैंने कई समय पहले, 3-4 साल पहले भी देखा था, या 5 साल पहले, अभी भी मुझे याद है. दैट इज वेरी क्लियर, दैट इज इमोशन काइंड ऑफ ब्रांडिंग. एंड
Hmm.
थर्ड आप कह सकते हो एजुकेशन. एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो, अपने ऑडियंस को एजुकेट कर
Awareness.
रहे हो. एग्जैक्टली. जो पेटीएम करता है, पेटीएम स्टार्टिंग में आया था क्यूआर कोड के बारे में, उसने बताना शुरू किया कि आप कैसे क्यूआर कोड से अपने पेमेंट कर सकते हो, जस्ट बाय, है ना, स्कैनिंग एंड क्लिकिंग. जो आमिर खान के साथ आई थिंक ये ऐड आया था, आई थिंक, जो मुझे अभी कि क्यूआर कोड को आप जस्ट स्कैन करो और पे करो करके आया था. तो they were educating and they became the brand. So these are the three steps. जो ऊपर ऊपर की चीजें होती है,
Hmm.
इन तीन तरीके से we can make brand recollection very better. ये.
Thank you for saying whatever you said because it adds on to that experience part.
हम्म.
Abhi, when you want someone to, abhi क्या होता है कि what makes us human is our emotions, right? So if you want to focus on someone's human experience, you have to focus on emotion. You will always remember an ad which is emotionally connecting, uh, like which is sentimental.
हम्म.
So that you'll remember. Humor you're going to remember, like something very vague. So this phone falling and this guy dramatically coming and holding it, that's humor. Like that's out of the universe kind of
हम्म.
dramatic way. So I think that like you need to focus on these emotions and then you're trying to put that right. I remember, do you know that Samsung's ad where
Okay.
there's this man that just goes to this place to repair a TV, and then a blind or like some physically challenged person opens the door, and then he repairs the TV. And so one
वो
of their friend who is
पहाड़ी
also
वाला
blind.
ऐड समथिंग.
Ah, 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 ah.
राइट, राइट.
So the reason is
देयर वाज
like
इमोशन.
we need someone to evoke those things in us, man. Like we are bound to experience emotion. And people who just create a brand without any core value, they fade. They just fade. I'm just telling you. There is a difference between product and brand. Abhi, there are a lot of products, very few brands. So brand stands for something bigger than the product. Product belongs to the brand. Product is not the brand. So if you go to if you see a lot of chips, and there is Lace chips,
हम्म.
there's a lot of sodas, and then there is Coke and Pepsi. There is a difference. People
राइट,
don't
राइट.
want product, they want brands because if they trust your brand, they're gonna trust all of your products in a way.
And I would like to add, make it more clear. जो ये चीज है, like people do not want product, they want feelings. We can
Yeah,
say in much clear way, they want feelings.
yeah.
Like कोक को इसलिए पीते हैं क्योंकि वो थोड़ा यंग जनरेशन को जनरेट अप करता है. और माउंटेन ड्यू को इसलिए पीते हैं बिकॉज दे वांट टू बी फाइटर, और लाइफ में कुछ,
Adventurous.
यस एग्जैक्टली, लाइफ में कुछ तूफानी करते हैं. बिकॉज दैट, ये चीजें साइकोलॉजी के ऊपर खेला जाता है. व्हेन यू आर एक्चुअली एज अ मार्केटर, आई कैन मच अंडरस्टैंड व्हेन यू आर मार्केटिंग समवन प्रोडक्ट और समवन चीजें सर्विस को, हम उसमें मैसेज ऐसे रखते हैं जो क्लिकबल हो. तुरंत क्लिक कर जाए। लाइक पेटीएम का आप कभी मैसेज नहीं भूल सकते हो, जो उसका जिंगल है, पेटीएम करो, दिस मैसेज।
Hmm.
अगर आप कहीं कोई करता है तो अचानक से माइंड में क्लिक करता है। इस चीजों को साइकोलॉजी, माइंडसेट और इमोशन से चीजों को जोड़ा जाता है, बिकॉज यू कैन
Hmm.
कनेक्ट इन अ मोर मच बेटर वे। और इसको आई
Yeah.
थिंक इसलिए भी किया जाता है, इमोशनल मार्केटिंग। और ये सब जो टीवी का भी आप यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सैमसंग टीवी, आपने उसमें कहीं नहीं देखा होगा कि सैमसंग की बात की गई हो। उस एड में पर्सन केम, रिपेयर द टीवी, एट द एंड उसने लास्ट में बोला होगा कि सैमसंग केयर्स अबाउट यू समथिंग करके, है ना। सो लास्ट में तो इसमें यही, जो भी मैसेज करता है वो अपने प्रोडक्ट के बारे में कभी भी बताते ही नहीं है। दे एट द एंड जस्ट दे पुट देयर लोगो और देयर नेम, दैट्स इट।
Yeah.
एंड उससे ही मार्क, क्योंकि वो पूरे मैसेज को रखना चाहते हैं एंड वो फीलिंग्स सामने वालों को देते हैं। उस फीलिंग्स की वजह से बहुत से ऐड जो होते हैं हमें याद रहते हैं।
Huh. No, I think that our generation is that generation. Like when you see our dad's generation or our grandfather's generation, our grandfather generation was basically, is it necessary? We will buy that. Is this
हम्म,
required for my survival? And then came our father's generation, where
हम्म,
they went beyond survival, where okay, my survival is set, खाना शेल्टर पूरा सेट है, अभी लेट्स गो थोड़ा बियॉन्ड। अभी हमारा जनरेशन सर्वाइवल इज रेडी, सर्वाइवल एवरीथिंग इज सेट, थोड़ा बहुत लग्जरी हमारा पेरेंट्स आर ऑलरेडी सेट, now let's go beyond. So that's why our generation cares more about value,
एग्जैक्टली।
like what they want, a feeling of they belong to something bigger than themselves. That's why अभी ये nature का, ये global warming, ये पूरा अभी ये जेंडर फ्लूइडिटी का इशू चल रहा है। लॉट ऑफ पीपल इट्स लाइक जेंडर, देयर इज नो जस्ट मेल और फीमेल, there are lot many generations, we need to be more inclusive, there is no racism, and now it is going more into wrong extreme. Like now everything is like controversial and we just fight over social media that my value is higher, your value is higher, because there is a constant need. हमारे अंदर वो ट्राइबल इंस्टिंक्ट है, लाइक एवोल्यूशन परस्पेक्टिव, we do have the tribal instinct where we want to belong to a tribe. So I think a lot of brands, if you say, especially clothing brands, if there is a certain apple, it's a tribe. If you look at a certain clothing brands, right, some people just buy clothes from that brand. They want what it represents, like
दैट इज ऑल्सो
I am this
फीलिंग।
superior. Yeah, like they want that sense of feeling, so they want to belong to that tribe. So now let's say Royal Enfield stands for, like, if you have a Royal Enfield bike, it means that you're this adventurous guy who is, like, you love riding, it represents a certain
बिकॉज
thing and you
ये
want to
चीज
belong.
ऐसे भी होता है, बिकॉज वी हैव ऑल्सो ऑलवेज वॉच्ड एड देयर एड, है ना, पहाड़ियों वाले ऐड हमने उनके हमेशा देखे हैं।
Hmm.
रॉयल एनफील्ड के
हाँ.
हमेशा हमने पहाड़ी वाले ही ऐड देखे हैं, और कोई
Yeah.
ऐड देखा ही नहीं होगा कोई ट्रिप पे
हाँ.
जाते हुए, पहाड़ी पे जाते हुए। इसलिए हमें उसको रिप्रेजेंट।
And we want to put that on our Instagram bio. Like we want to
हम्म,
put that on our Instagram bio, saying that I'm a, what is this terminology? I'm this explorer. I'm this
हम्म,
adventurous kind of guy. So that's the emotion that, especially women, like they ride bikes, saying, I'm a badass. Like they wanna, like there is a certain thing that they want to stand for, man, and we badly want it. So that's why recently Akshay Kumar, that Rajnikanda Pan Masala. So he, like, initially there was, I think initially there was
I
that
watched
Zuba
his
Kesari.
आई
So
वाज
there
हिज,
is this
ही वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट। मैं ये जो नाम लिखा हुआ है,
Khiladi.
मैं जो अभी ही स्टार्टेड पान मसाला ऐड।
Yeah. First was Ajay Devgan. Then came Shah Rukh Khan. Then we're like, oh, let's welcome the next Khiladi. Like that's the ad. Ajay Devgan and Shah Rukh Khan, they both will be coming in a car to welcome the next Khiladi, which is Akshay Kumar. Akshay Kumar received so much hate. Like people, like he comes for that, like don't smoke cigarette ad. Like he comes for that. Like he has he want to sell this persona that he is someone who stands for the right things, right? And then, I mean, everyone's a hypocrite if we come down to that. So he saw the money and then he's like, yeah, I'll do this, of course.
In
बाद में गया मेरे values.
yeah,
And then
in
people
his
started throwing him a lot of hate.
he talked about that I am not going to परफॉर्म और ऐसे ऐड में जिसमें मेरी ऑडियंस को ऐसी चीजें पता चले, या लाइक ही वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट स्वच्छ भारत समथिंग ऑन हिज बोर्ड करके, ही वाज फिंगरिंग आउट। सो दैट comparison. Now people are making it comparison that you said and what you are doing right now. And Akshay Kumar is also what I think जो मेरे mind में figure है उनका, he's a healthy person and he's like a genuine person for their followers.
Branding.
Branding, so उसने
अक्षय
अपनी
कुमार
branding.
का भी ब्रांडिंग हुआ है. Like Akshay Kumar as a person, his branding also, there is a branding to his personality, that he is someone who stands for what is socially right. The thing is, people will stop watching his movies if he continue what he did, because people don't care. People don't give a jack shit about if your movie or like what you do in act, because they want to stand for something bigger than themselves. When they say, "Hey Akshay, you said that this is the right thing to do, but you're doing something contradictory." When they're saying that, it makes them feel that, I am better person than Akshay Kumar. Like when they're pointing that finger out, that is what people want. Like when they're using your product, they want to feel better about themselves. So they care a lot more than just what you give them, like product or your movie. So everything is a brand, everybody is a designer at the end of it all.
Just
If
one thing
I
out.
so what I was saying was, if you look at actors, if you look at Sachin, if you like, if I go ask your wife who Sachin is, she's going to give a characteristic traits of who you are. That is your
Exactly.
brand. If you ask people who I know, if you listen to my podcast, there is a, like, the more you listen to me, the more established brand I become. So the, like, when people listen to your podcast and people listen to my podcast, it all comes down to that. So everybody is a designer because everybody is trying to solve a problem. Your mom, if Jadu is not working, she'll do some jugad and she'll make it work. She's a designer. Everybody is a designer. That our chaiwala on the street who's trying to make some jugaad to make that umbrella stand, he is a designer. Everybody is a designer who's trying to solve a problem. I think that focus should always be on that. Like, what is the problem here? Let's say brand, you want to market this brand. What is the problem? What are you trying to solve? How are you trying to solve?
Actually, yeah, that one point that I want to say कि लोग अब ना अवेयर हो रहे हैं. लाइक जैसे हमारे माइंड में अक्षय कुमार का पिक्चर था कि ही इज अ हेल्दी पर्सन एंड ही डज नॉट डू दैट काइंड ऑफ वर्क कि लोगों को हार्मफुल ले, लाइक जो गुटखा वाले ऐड की बात कर रहे हो उस तरह की. बट जब अक्षय कुमार ने ये चीजें की तो लोगों ने उसको भी हेट दिया. लाइक
Hmm.
दैट 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 मीन कि पीपल आर गेटिंग अवेयर अबाउट इट. पीपल,
Yeah,
उनको पता है कि व्हाट दे वांट. लाइक मी, व्हाट आई वांट आई एग्जैक्टली नो. राइट. लोग सोशल मीडिया के होने की वजह से, लाइक सोशल मीडिया एंड यूट्यूब, फेसबुक, इन सब चीजों के, they got more exposure of it, what is right and what is wrong. So you cannot fool your
yeah,
audience. Either you are a brand or you are Akshay Kumar or whosoever you are. You can, you cannot make it them fool
yeah.
because they
That's true.
all are aware. अगर अगर आज की दुनिया में सोशल मीडिया नहीं होता, सो व्हाट वुड हैव बीन डन कि अक्षय कुमार ने जो पिछली बार बोला था कि मैं ये चीजें इस तरह की नहीं करूंगा कभी लाइफ में, तो वो चीजें फेड आउट हो जाती है कि लोगों को पता भी नहीं चलता कि वो हुआ भी था नहीं, कुछ कहा भी था कि ऐसा नहीं किया. एंड दे स्टार्टेड फॉलोइंग कि हाँ ये चीजें है, ऐसा करना है मुझे भी. लोग
Yeah.
अब अवेयर हो रहे हैं. व्हाट यू से, देयर मस्ट बी ऑथेंसिटी, और उसमें ट्रस्ट होना चाहिए, उसमें कॉन्फिडेंस होना चाहिए. वो सारी चीजें मैटर करती है लोगों के लिए. एंड व्हाट यू से वो वेरीफाई करते हैं चीजें. लाइक अगर मेरे लिए कोई चीजें कुछ करता है, आई वेरीफाई, चाहे मैं उनको बोलूँ या ना बोलूँ, बट इन माई हेड आई थिंक अबाउट व्हाट इज राइट एंड व्हाट इज रॉन्ग. एंड द सेम थिंग विथ एवरीबडी, स्पेशली जो सोशल मीडिया की जनरेशन है, दे
Yeah,
वेरीफाई थिंग. अगर हम
yeah,
इसका एग्जांपल और देना चाहूंगा, अगर हम कोई प्रोडक्ट या कोई चीज़ें लेने जाते हैं तो हम पहले कई जगह देखते हैं. ऑनलाइन में देखते हैं कि इस प्रोडक्ट की रेंज क्या है, फिर उसकी वेबसाइट पे भी देखते हैं, अमेजन पे भी देखते हैं, फिर शॉप पे भी देखते हैं. शॉप पे भी दो तरीके की, एक वहाँ पे जो उसके स्टोर पे, तो हम वेरीफाई करते हैं चीज़ें उससे पहले, लेने से पहले. और हम अमेजन पे भी जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे कैसे वेरीफाई करते हैं, हम उसके नीचे के रिव्यूज़ देखते हैं, उसके रिव्यू अच्छा है कि नहीं अच्छा है. तो ये सोशल मीडिया की जो जनरेशन निकल के आ रही है ना, ये चीज़ें कुछ भी करने से पहले वेरीफाई करती ही करती है. तो यू कैन नॉट मेक देम फूल, है ना. फेक एंड
if
फेक
I
फेक इट फेक इट एंड मेक इट टिल वाला जो फंडा था, दैट इज गोइंग टू बी फेड
yeah,
आउट. ज़्यादा दिन
yeah,
तक चलने
yeah,
वाला
for
नहीं है.
sure. Yeah, I think that if I have to say in simple terminologies, branding 101. People care. You should make sure that you also care for your brand, and your brand also cares. Like, think about your brand as a person. Think about your brand as a person, as a movie character. So when we look at movie, when we see that we see that the hero or the protagonist stands for something.
Mhm.
He stands for something much more valuable. If we say Bajrangi Bhaijaan, Salman Khan's movie, he is standing for something valuable. Like when they are creating this character, they will be like, this is the kind of guy who will help a human being no matter how hard the situation is. He's a very empathetic man, and that's how they created the character. If your brand was a person, how would that person be? How would that, like, what would that person do? Create that character. I think that is very, very important. So that's when you can take better decisions. Like if you create a character for your brand, if you make a brand a person, then you can decide, will this person do this thing or not? Like if there is a certain situation,
Mhm.
like let's say there is Diwali, what would this person do at that time? That will help you make better marketing branding decisions, right? How do you sell this? So I think that even when I was studying, people who study brand, they think deeper. They think brand as a person, they think brand as a character, and then they build it. They build
Right, right.
brand's foundation.
And one more thing I would add here, like agar your branding is good, but your product
Hmm,
is, stuck,
hmm,
so you cannot, market yourself better. और क्योंकि आपकी ब्रांडिंग तो स्ट्रांग है एंड योर प्रोडक्ट इज सकिंग, वी हैव टू मैच बोथ टुगेदर. योर प्रोडक्ट इज गुड
hmm,
एंड योर मार्केटिंग इज गुड, योर ब्रांडिंग इज गुड, तभी चीज़ चल सकती है. अगर एक टाइम पे आपने अपने मार्केट को अच्छा कर लिया, ब्रांडिंग को अच्छा कर लिया, पर यो आपका प्रोडक्ट सक हो गया, तो मार्केट आपको एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेगी. लाइक इन माई रिसेंट पॉडकास्ट आई वॉज
hmm.
टॉकिंग विथ दैट
Yeah.
पर्सन कि यू मार्केट डजंट केयर अबाउट यू. आपकी चाहे कोई भी चीज़ अच्छी हो चाहे खराब हो, ही केयर्स अबाउट ओनली हिमसेल्फ. लाइक मैं आई डू नॉट केयर अबाउट सलमान खान कैसा दिखता है कैसा नहीं दिखता है, बट मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल के लिए हो सकता है. वट आई केयर कि सलमान खान वट ही कैन डू फॉर मी, राइट? सो मार्केट सीधा वट यू कैन डू फॉर मार्केट, दैट इज वट ही इज गोइंग टू केयर अबाउट इट. लेकिन
Yeah.
आपका प्रोडक्ट सही नहीं है तो मार्केट आपको एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेगी, चाहे आपकी ब्रांडिंग कितनी भी अच्छी हो जाए. एट द एंड आपको
Yes.
रिजेक्ट करने जा रहा है. अमेजोन
Yeah.
सक्सेसफुल इसलिए हो पाया क्योंकि उसका ब्रांडिंग मार्केटिंग तो अच्छा है ही है, उसका एक्सपीरियंस भी अच्छा है. जोमेटो का
Hmm.
एक्सपीरियंस अच्छा है. इसी पे हम देख सकते हैं जोमेटो और स्विगी का कंपैरिजन करें तो किसकी ब्रांडिंग और मार्केटिंग और एक्सपीरियंस अच्छा है सबसे ज़्यादा? जोमेटो की, है ना? स्विगी भी साथ में, दे स्टार्टेड बोथ अराउंड टुगेदर एंड दे स्टैंड फॉर टुगेदर कि सारी चीज़ें सेम करते हैं वो, दे डू द सेम थिंग्स. बट अगर हम बात करें तो सबसे ज़्यादा मार्केट में कौन स्टैंड करता है? जोमेटो, बिकॉज देयर मार्केटिंग देयर एक्सपीरियंस इज बेटर. और उसमें जोमेटो की कई चीज़ें भी आई थी मार्केट में कि लोग उसके खाना रास्ते में लेकर जाके चुरा के खा लेते हैं. आया था मैसेज ऐसा बीच में, हाउ दे मैनेज ऑल दिस स्टफ एंड दे आर स्टिल इन टू द मार्केट. अगर जोमेटो की मार्केटिंग का वो एसईओ देखते हो, लैक्स ऑफ लैक्स कीवर्ड जो हैं उसके रैंक करते हैं. एनीथिंग यू सर्च
Hmm.
रिलेटेड टू फूड रेस्टोरेंट, एनीथिंग, यू आर गोइंग टू गेट जोमेटो फर्स्ट और इन द सेकेंड पेज, second of the queue.
First or second slot.
Exactly. So that is very smartly they are playing. और उसी पे आप स्विगी की बात करते हो, दे आर हार्डली देयर.
But market cap of Swiggy is higher than Zomato, right? If I'm
आई बिलीव
like in
व्हाट
terms of.
मैंने स्टार्ट्स चेक किए थे अभी एक अराउंड गोइंग टू बी 8 मंथ्स. और आप मार्केट देखोगे तो कोई भी कीवर्ड आप सर्च करो ऑन इन गूगल, एनीथिंग यू सर्च related to food restaurant, you are going to get the link of Zomato first or in second line. That is my. और कई टूल्स आते हैं जिसमें आप सर्च भी कर सकते हो कि जोमेटो का जो वेबसाइट है कितने पे रैंक कर रहा है, उसका डीएपीए क्या
Okay.
है और उसके कितने कीवर्ड्स जो है रैंक कर रहे हैं. सो अराउंड देवर
Hmm.
लैक्स ऑफ कीवर्ड्स, अभी मुझे एग्जैक्टली नहीं याद है, बट लाखों कीवर्ड जो उसके है गूगल पे रैंक कर रहे हैं. एग्जैक्टली.
So, to going back to your earlier point, like even if your marketing is amazing, if your product sucks, then people are not gonna accept you, right?
एग्जैक्टली.
Like your product. So I do agree with that point. But let's say Zara, or let's take Kamlesh Tailors, some local brand. Quality, both are t-shirts, both are shirts. But why people prefer Zara over Kamlesh Tailors? There's a difference, right? So if your quality of your product sucks, people will not come to you. Okay. But let's say if there are 10 products whose quality is the same, whose branding is solid, people will go there. Like whose credibility is solid, whose brand's character is solid, like let's say Zara, there is an association to luxury to that. Zara's t-shirt are manufactured in Bangladesh, and their work environment of the people there is horrible. Like they pay really, really less. Their margin is 95%, if I can say that. And the work environment of the laborers is shitty. And the thing is, who cares? Like the Zara t-shirt is manufactured less than 100 rupees, but they sell at a very high margin. So the quality is the same between the Kamalesh tailors or your local t-shirt and Zara. But the way how they've sold it, like how they've stand, they put in efforts into creating a character to that brand.
Fact.
I think this is a very so now people are studying this and they know how to make this. But if you go 100 years back or if you go 50 years back, there are still brands that we still had association. They created jingles like washing powder. Nirma also had that song, right? Like jingle. They
It
wanted
was 10
people
years
to
ago, and now still we remember.
yeah. I think it was more than 10. Like, I
Hmm.
think the brand started way before even I was born. But we still remember it, right? Like, growing up, that, and then a lot of like people knew how to create character to their brand even before this whole concept of branding came into picture. So I think it's something that has always existed. Like people created brand for themselves. Like deep down, we all want to dress a certain way, right? Like we all dress a certain way. Like why? Because we want to create our own persona as a brand. So inherently, if you look at politicians, why did Indira Gandhi paint her hair white? Like she just left that particular part white.
Mhm.
Why? Mahatma Gandhi. If I say Mahatma Gandhi, so specs, that dhoti, that mustache, Nehru, that topi, elements of that brand, like politicians have always known this. They have created themselves as a brand and then they stood. Narendra Modi. Why does Narendra Modi wear the clothes that he wears? Like people sell that clothes. If you go to a certain shop, they'll be like, this is Narendra Modi style, wear it. If you go to any movie, this is Amitabh Bachchan style. Amitabh Bachchan wore this dress, wear it. Branding has always been an inherent part of human nature. Even when we are telling story, when we tell Hanuman in Ramayana, Rama brand. Rama has a character traits. Rama is someone who listens to his father, who is very obedient, who cares for people. Hanuman, he's so loyal, he's so strong. Like when I say Hanuman, we get a super jacked dude who's like super tall, right? And when
Right,
we
right.
think about Rama, we like calmness. When we think about Buddha, like peaceful. So we have always like nobody knows how Hanuman looks. But when I say Hanuman, we all collectively get this one image of what Hanuman is. When I say Buddha,
Perfect.
I don't know. Very few people like we have not seen how Buddha looks. But when I say Buddha, we have a certain thing. Throughout history, we have told stories. We have written poems describing certain people. That is a brand. Like
Exactly,
we
exactly.
have inherently created it, and that has been an integral part of us, if I must say.
It's been a branding all over. Branding matters a lot. I can understand
If
about.
you say Jesus, when I say Jesus, long hair, beard,
Hmm.
clothes.
Hmm.
How many people have seen Jesus? Do you think Jesus always had long hair? It had to start somewhere, right? He must have had short
Exactly.
hair. But do we
Exactly.
see Jesus with short hair anywhere? No. Like, uh, like when you say Hanuman also,
Perfect.
like,
Perfect.
so there is this, like Narendra Modi, has he always dressed like that? No, right? He had to dress differently somewhere. People want to stay in people's head for as long as possible.
Hmm.
When we say Gandhi, word association, when we think of a brand, we need to so there is something called mood board. We create mood boards.
Hmm.
So basically what we do is, let's say, throw me a random genre, throw me a random category, anything,
Hmm.
anything, just say some random category,
Category in which sense?
like adventurous, sporty, like
Okay.
youthful, like throw any random like
Sport.
metaphor.
Sport. Just for. Hmm.
Sports, right?
Hmm.
If you want to build a sport brand, you need to write a couple of keywords. Like, let's say it could be anything, like fast, thunder, energetic,
Hmm.
active. Like
Perfect.
you need like enthusiasm,
Hmm.
vibrant, or there will be couple of keywords, and then you need to list a lot of keywords, and you select couple of keywords which you want the brand to represent. And then what you do is you try to look for pictures, which represents those words. Like, let's say if I say sport, if I want lightning, like fast, I look for a couple of colors. I look for a couple of visuals. So the way we start is with couple of keywords. When we say Nike, that swoosh,
Right.
it's that like
Exactly.
swoosh, like that's an expression, right? So that's where it all starts. Like we need keywords to actually create that brand. Like at the like before we see that end brand, there are a couple of keywords that we see
Hmm.
that the brand represents. Now we say Narendra Modi, or when we say Mahatma Gandhi. When I say Mahatma Gandhi, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? When I say Mahatma Gandhi, uh, what are the keywords that you get? Like,
Uh,
what's the first thing that?
no hair, like bald, and chasma, and one chadi in hand.
Yeah,
That is
and
his
if I have to
character.
say,
And dhoti kurta, no kurta, just only dhoti.
yeah. So if I can say values that Gandhi, like if I say values, like intangible things, what do you think Gandhi represents?
Ahimsa, Ahimsa represented himself as a Ahinsawadi.
Exactly. That's the branding. Like when I say Gandhi, you say ahimsa, you say physical appearance. Two things. One is an emotion, a value. Second is appearance.
Right,
Two
right,
things. That's how you differentiate your brand. One is value, what you stand for, and how unique your appearance is. Let's say if there are 10 different people, or like some 50 people who look, or let's say just one other person who looked exactly like Gandhi with bald, with specs, with dhoti and stick, you would use some other terminology to differentiate those two. These wouldn't be the differentiating factor. So, like appearance of a brand, like with the logo or with your color palette, like the color of your brand, how it stands, that
right,
physically
right.
differentiate characteristics. The second one is the value. So, if we can take Gandhi's example earlier, those are the two ways how you can differentiate your brand from anybody else's brands.
Now I can understand when you correlated with this Gandhiji and logo, this thing. Now I can understand it much better because I can see like Mahatma Gandhi or Narendra Modi appearance as our logo. हम अपने लोगो या अपने डिजाइनिंग में हम क्या रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं, क्या मैसेज लेकर जाते हैं इन आवर डिजाइनिंग, वो दैट इज गोइंग टू बी आवर अपीयरेंस. हम अपनी वेबसाइट को कैसे डिजाइन करते हैं, दैट इज आवर अपीयरेंस, है ना. और अपने चाहे ऐप हो
Can you
गया.
please can you
ओके
please
ओके.
push your oh yeah, this
इट्स
is
फाइन.
better.
सो हाउ वी रिप्रेजेंट, लाइक हम कैसी चीजों को करते हैं. दिस फाइन. ओके. सो हाउ वी मेक इट थिंग्स बेटर. हम जो वेबसाइट बनाते हैं, हम वेबसाइट को हम अपने अपीयरेंस को समझ सकते हैं. लाइक गांधी जी का और नरेंद्र मोदी का जो अपीयरेंस है, हम उसको अपनी वेबसाइट से देख सकते हैं, अपने लोगों से कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट going to make an impression to our audience or visitors,
Yeah, yeah.
and that
It's
is our
his
branding.
clothes that you put on. If
Exactly.
Gandhi is a brand, if Gandhi is a brand, accessories, clothing becomes your physical appearance. That becomes your logo, your font, your website, your colors. Those are the appearance, the clothes
Virtual
that you
appearance,
put on.
exactly.
Yeah. So that is the core of it all. Like how you don't, if you are an entrepreneur, if you want to build something, try building a brand, not a product, because you can have n number of products in your same brand, but
Exactly.
building a brand is much more harder. So if you say when people are marketing, they always market their product. Not very few people market their brands. So let's say if you Mountain Dew is a product. It's a FMCG product, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a so that is slightly different, and the way how they market that is slightly different. But if you see, when you see ads on TV, they do market like product, but with a theme. That theme stays the same. Have you seen that Virat Kohli's ad with Manyavar? Like,
Mm.
so I think like different religions, like different festivals, and I think physically the set keeps changing, and Virat Kohli comes with a monologue saying like, so at the core of them is no matter which religion you belong to, anything festival stays the same, festivity stays the same. So I think that you're still advertising your brand, your clothes, but your theme, your value, that stays the same.
Right, right.
So I think you need to try and marketing that, like build a brand. I think even as a designer, we create portfolios. So portfolios is I'm sure you would have heard of that. So you as a social media marketer, or you as a
Also,
profession, whatever you do, so whatever you do, if you
portfolio,
need to apply
case
to another
studies,
job,
exactly.
so you create portfolio, right? Like when you want to apply for other jobs, like, see, this is what I did in my previous job. This is my case study of this particular brand.
Hmm.
Move on to next particular brand. You create a portfolio. Your portfolio is your brand in terms of career. We are always told to create our own brand. Like me as a designer, what I focus on, what I stand for is completely different from somebody else. What I value in a design might be completely different from somebody else. That needs to be conveyed to whoever is hiring you or to the company.
Hmm. Right. Perfect.
So
Perfect.
even as a developer, right? Like let's say there are 10 different people who are applying for the same job, and 10 different people are good at that thing and they have specific skill set. How are you going to differentiate yourself?
I would
Your
like to
branding.
exactly branding is the key factor that we can talk about here.
Yeah,
And one more thing that when I was applying for the job and other stuffs, then there was just one page that 4A क्या page होता है CV होता है लोग बना के सब कर देते हैं. Then I was just doing the same 4K का page बना के CV that I was applying for. Then I changed my perspective. मैंने 4K छोड़ के मैंने लॉन्ग फॉर्मेट में बनाया PDF में PPT में एक तरीके से. देन इन मेरे सीवी मैंने अपनी सीवी को 4K से ना करके मैंने उसको एक पोर्टफोलियो टाइप का बनाया. आई मेड माई सीवी एज अ पोर्टफोलियो सो दैट मेड अ गुड इम्प्रेशन ऑन रिक्रूटर्स. जब मैं उसको अप्लाई करता था लाइक व्हेन यू अप्लाई फॉर मल्टीपल लाइक अप्लाई फॉर जॉब लाइक 10 to 5 जॉब आप अप्लाई करते हो पर डे एटलीस्ट बिकॉज यू गेट वेरी लेस नंबर ऑफ कॉल्स. क्या उसी टाइम पे सेम एप्लीकेशन पे मल्टीपल्स लोग अप्लाई कर रहे होते हैं. तो जो मेरी चांसेस थी पहले मैं 10 लोगों को पर डे फिल मतलब फॉर्म फिल करता था तो उसमें से मुझे लाइक 2 से 3 कॉल्स आते थे. व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड अप्लाइंग विद दीज portfolio kind of application I started getting more results from there, more calls from there. like seven, मेरा रेशियो 7 to 8 हो गया. and I when I changed to my portfolio CV into portfolio, so that is what I was getting
yeah,
good results. सो आई थिंक
yeah,
सब एंड सबको ये चीजें करनी चाहिए. आप सीवी जो भी बनाते हो एज अ पोर्टफोलियो बनाओ है ना कि दैट कैन शो योर वर्क कि आप क्या वर्क करते हो. थोड़ा बहुत अपने बारे में बता के यू कैन स्टार्ट शेयरिंग योर एक्सपीरियंस. दैट इज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट गोइंग टू मेक एन इम्पैक्ट है ना. एट द एंड वो आपकी सारी चीजें आप बात
yeah,
करेंगे दे विल बट योर सीवी इज योर फर्स्ट इम्प्रेशन. अगर मैंने आपकी सीवी ओपन की और मैं आई गॉट नथिंग कि हाँ सबकी तरह है आई मे लुक फॉर अदर वन है ना. उसी टाइम पे मैं दूसरे की भी खोल के दे सकता हूँ. बट मेरा यहाँ पे ये कहना है कि आपकी सीवी अगर कोई एक बार खोले तो वो उसी पे स्टक हो जाए. उसी के बारे में जानने की कोशिश करे और कि वो ऐसे तो मैंने कभी देखा नहीं है. ऐसी चीजें मैंने क्योंकि सब 4A में देते हैं आई बिलीव सारे के सारे एटलीस्ट मैं ये कह सकता हूँ मेरे फ्रेंड्स जितने हैं. ओके सो द थिंग आई एम ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग ओवर हियर दैट अगर आपकी कोई सीवी ओपन करता है कोई भी रिक्रूटर तो वो उस समय पे आपकी सीवी छोड़ के दूसरी सीवी को फॉरवर्ड करके वो चीज देखे ना. राइट बिकॉज इफ आई
yeah.
ओपन अ सीवी आई मे वॉच अदर सीवी कि हाँ इसको देख लिया समझ लिया दूसरा भी देखता हूँ. then I'll compare then I'll
Differentiate.
exactly I'll compare then I'll make a decision which one I need to call. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. ऐसा ना करने के लिए what we can do is we can make our CV as a portfolio as a case study. इस तरीके की अगर हम अपनी सीवी को बनाते हैं then it reduces the chances of getting rejected फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट स्टेज. और ये रिक्रूटर्स को डिसीजन लेने में इजी कर देता है आपकी सीवी को कि हाँ इसको लेना है कि नहीं लेना है.
Yeah,
राइट तो दैट इज व्हाट
yeah.
आई डिड when I was applying for the multiple like job in social media marketing. So I made as a
You need to have
portfolio.
a character. Resumes usually lack that, right? Like resumes are very
Exactly.
mechanical. They're very like
It's
there
like
is no character, there is no person. It's just this bunch of
exactly.
text.
I believe that resume must be result oriented है ना. क्योंकि एट द एंड अगर मैं आपको हायर करता हूँ एज अ डिजाइनर जस्ट लेट्स टेक एग्जांपल मैं हायर करता हूँ, तो आई वुड सी कि व्हाट यू कैन डू फॉर मी, राइट? अगेन
And also,
हमारा
like it should tell a story, man. Like I think that,
हम्म
see, 10 different people are applying for the same job. So how are you making to how are you making it fun? So basically, if you ask me, I'm a very humor kind of person. Like if I go to any interview,
एग्जैक्टली
I try to make it as humorous as possible because that's my way of not being stressful. Like I be more of who I am when I'm not stressed. So plus interview formats are very stressful, right? But
हम्म
catch hold of what is your emotion. Like if you're a poet or if you're a storyteller, if you're a writer, use that skill. Like make your resume more interesting, man. Like tell like usually how do they tell stories? Like once upon a time they lived a king, right? Like you can like make it fun, like make it storytelling format. Like whatever is your skill, own it. If you're a very data kind of person, use data, like use data to show. But
राइट
I
राइट
but you use something, but don't be very monotonous. Like put effort into building your brand, put effort into creating your brand through your resume also. Like for us as a designers, we will have our portfolio with all our design works. So even if we our resume comes second or third in the list, first they see is portfolio, like my work. How do I do it? So when I'm showing my work, how am I showing my work? So, but the other day, my sister, she did her MBA and she was trying to apply for a job. Like, man, all they can see is just few words of who you are, what have your studies, what have your achievements. The same shit thousand other people are gonna put. So
राइट
then I told my sister, like, at least use like better design template. So then her resume looks at least visually good. Make it clear. Like most of the people just have Word docs. Like, what are you doing? It's not an essay, right? Like when they see it,
एग्जैक्टली
use yeah, like make it visually look good. Put emphasis on certain keywords. Make them bold. Make certain less increase fonts of certain things. Make it visually look good. Put emphasis on stuff. Just don't like even
एग्जैक्टली
when you go to
एग्जैक्टली
interview, even when you go to interview, when they ask who you are, when you create a brand for yourself, it makes it much more easier to explain who you are. Let's say me, I love talking to people, I love learning, that's why I do podcasts, and then that's why I have 49 episodes. And couple of things I do solo also because like I love exploring things by myself. I love talking also. This is my branding, this is my character. It makes it easier to explain myself when I go somewhere. If someone asks me like, who the heck are you, man? I'll be like, this is me. I do this, my passion, my so and so. People just don't want, like if you go to company, they just don't want your work. They want what are you bringing to the table? Who are you, man? Like what do you stand for? What do you care?
एग्जैक्टली एग्जैक्टली
Are you just this boring person who is just focused on work, or are you this someone who does something else? Like
एग्जैक्टली
people want employees to be happy so that they can be do better at work. So what makes you happy? What are your hobbies? Like you need to express that, right? So create your own brand.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what? In my recent podcast with Kiran, I was talking about. So we came to a point that we are talking about like building our personal brand, building something our own side is a new kind of CV, right? Like if I have created my brand on LinkedIn or Instagram, I have gained 10K followers. Like whereas we are a podcast and YouTube content creator, we build our good following over there. So this is our new kind of CV to get job or to get something done in a much easier way,
Hmm.
right? That we were talking that ये आज के world में this is new kind of CV, and the same thing is LinkedIn doing. LinkedIn इससे पहले क्या कर रहा था? He was just like Indeed kind of job portal, but now it is a content creating part and you can build brand over there. So अगर LinkedIn पे अपनी brand build करते हो, the chances of getting job from LinkedIn is much easier. So that we are talking. He also was sharing his thought and experience with one of his friend. He built YouTube community, good community on YouTube. So he is now getting good job from there. So I think building a brand is
Hmm.
kind of new job resume, we can say resume or CV. I know it makes your
Yeah.
effort much easier and you can stand you know uh, strongly. in others
in
when you're
random part.
exactly that's what. So वो आपके कंपटीशन को थोड़ा सा कम कर देता है.
I think that differentiating people need to remember you, man.
Hmm.
I think that like if at all you want to create a logo for your podcast, no matter how fancy mic that you get in future, currently your headset with that microphone could be your brand. Like that's how I'm gonna remember this podcast.
Mhm.
Like so, like I have tattoos, right? Like some people remember some of my tattoos, or like so something. So they
Mhm.
always associate certain things. Like if you wear spectacles, I just wore this because it makes me look like I know what I'm talking about. But like
Exactly,
like people
exactly.
who wear spectacles, you remember like we tease them that, right? Like some people who are fat, we remember that. Like when they're in school, they get bullied for that, right? Because that's what stands out. So anything, anybody that you see, we always remember patterns. Like we human beings are like we meant to do that, right?
Exactly.
Like we
To
wanna
much to
we
make it much easier, like what I can say is कि why influencers and celebrities are getting paid or getting recognized in much better way than other ones. It's because their
yeah,
face value, they are constant in the front of their audience. पहला चीज, and because they make an impact on others' life. So and their branding is strong. That's why they are getting more paid. और यूट्यूब टिकटॉक इन सब चीजों की वजह से आने की वजह से द अगर कोई बनना भी चाहता है दे कैन become a good influencer through their YouTube videos, Instagram profiles जो भी वहाँ पे content create करके anyone can be a influencer in a month or in a few things, doing just few things. But if you have good talent, also you
yeah.
can get good amount of money
I
once you're
think that be fun, be a fun person. I think even if you're not, put in efforts to learn how to be fun slightly. That comes handy when you're in a work environment, right? Like when you're working, that comes in very, very handy. So if you're in an interview, if you're in a resume, make it fun, like make it interesting. Don't make it boring because we humans like fun stuff, man. Like we want to be entertained, like we like fun stuff. So I think
we can say
put
we
in
do not
effort.
like Gangadhar, but we like Satyamani.
Yeah,
So गंगाधर नहीं शक्तिमान बोलो कि ताकि लोगों को इंटरेस्ट आए, लोगों को
yeah,
थोड़ा
yeah.
चीजें फनी लगे, फनी या चीजें we can get something from them.
Have you seen Pushpa?
Yes, yes, that is great, interesting movie. झुकेगा नहीं
So if you
है.
see, he has this shoulder tilted and he has this dialogue, right? Like where he just
Exactly.
rubs his chin like this. Those traits, like that character that just sold. Like now people associate that with that. So I think that even if you don't know what the movie name is, you're gonna say, hey, that character like this, like you're gonna imitate the
Hmm.
hero. I think that that's how people remember you. And if you're being conscious about that, right? Like I think that you don't have to be a brand when you're talking to people, when you're making friends. In work environment, that makes you stand out. I think in work, you need like people need to know who you are. That's very, very important. Like people should know who Sachin is. Sachin is this guy. Like people should know. Like Sankarshan is this guy.
Hmm.
Because they shouldn't be like who's that guy, like that guy who like does podcast also, like who's in our company, like who's that guy? People shouldn't be like that, right? Like even if they don't know who you are, they should be like, hey, that guy who does podcast, who also talks this, who also talks that, some three, four things you should be able to tell about yourself.
Right, right, that's fine. I think it's been a long 1.5 hour, right?
Yeah.
काफी लंबा podcast हो गया हमारा. That's great.
Yeah.
इससे पहले जो था मेरा 30 minutes का podcast था, around 20 minutes का, just because it was first podcast. तो स्टार्टिंग में 30 minutes का ही हो गया. एंड आई हैड नो मच आइडिया अबाउट कि पॉडकास्ट को कैसे लंबा करते हैं, कैसे चीजों को एक्सप्लेन करते हैं और फॉलो अप कैसे होता है. Then I learned about my recent podcast person, Kiran. So he just explained कि follow up questions होते हैं. You do it this way, and you can build a good, you know, rhythm of podcast, and it can go a long make a list of questions. I know you are not going to ask these kind of questions, but in a way that you stuck, you have no idea what you are going to talk about. You can ask from that questions. So,
I was just talking to one of my friend.
mm,
So I was having a very busy schedule. Like my weekdays, I'm working. Like my day ends at like 10 p.m. Even I'm not able to put in time to make my podcast also. So I was just thinking like, how do I like find time to do your podcast? Like, should I come on
mhm.
your podcast or like, what do I do? Like, do I put this time to making like my own podcast? So I have asked a lot of people to be guests on my podcast, and I know what like how it is the process.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to uh, how do I say this, man? Like I know what it takes. Like it's like we need to ask if you have 10 people out of just three respond, out of this one you can have on the podcast.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to help you in any way that I can,
Thank
and
you.
so normally I don't have like questions in my mind. Like when I record a podcast, right?
Mhm.
I just know what that person is and whatever they're doing, if it interests me, and I just talk. The reason why we were able to talk for this long is because it is something that I am passionate about. So are you. So I
Exactly.
think that is a key thing to like if you're bringing any of your guests in the future, right? You
Mhm.
should genuinely like what they're doing. I think that's much more. That's a
Mm.
easier way to. So I think personally, whatever works for you. If questions work, you can ask. You can shoot
No,
questions.
questions are like why I prepared questions, because just like in a way that we stuck, that we have no idea what we are gonna, you know to make it continue. So questions are
Yeah,
better to be prepared, that yeah, this is something, if I get stuck, I can put this question and make flow continue. That's why I prepared some of the
yes.
questions. Else
Correct,
that
correct.
is in a flow of things. So इसी चीज के लिए
Yeah,
मैंने
yeah.
questions prepared, and he taught me in a good things that now my second podcast is really good, and we had a great fun over here.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad
Mm.
you asked me to be on your podcast, and I had super fun. One
Thank
of the
you.
things that you're gonna love about doing podcast is you're gonna make friends. Lot of
Exactly,
them.
exactly. I got
Uh,
2 3 friends in my podcast. You may be second. You are the second person, and we are gonna continue the long. And that's why I started podcast, making video podcasts and inviting people. Just because I approach on Facebook, sorry, Instagram and LinkedIn, जिसकी अच्छी impact है, and who are in the podcast journey, and who at least creating podcast, or he or she has impact somewhere, like उसके followers अच्छे हैं, he made something, या वो पहले से podcast कर रहा हो, दूसरा, and या तो उसके कहीं पे अच्छे कुछ, at least he has been doing something,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least उसके पास कुछ तो
That's
शेयर करने के लिए, right?
that's my metric as well. Like,
Hmm.
who gives a shit, man? Like, how many followers you have? Whatever you're doing, do you know what you're doing? Are you
Exactly.
doing good at it? So
Exactly. At least you have
that's my
something to
metric.
share. Like आपके
Yeah,
Instagram पे 10K followers हैं, you can share कि Instagram पे followers कैसे बढ़ सकते हैं. wi- इसी पॉइंट पे हम लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, 1 आवर्स की या 30 मिनट्स के पॉडकास्ट हो सकता है. सो दैट इज व्हाट आई बीन डूइंग. एंड आपको इसलिए मैंने अप्रोच किया, जस्ट बिकॉज आई सॉ दैट यू हैव बीन कनेक्टिंग विद पीपल इन क्रिएटिंग पॉडकास्ट, सो आई थॉट आई कनेक्ट टू यू, एंड इट कैन, maybe you do not have like much follower in the sense, but you are impacting people, right? Sometimes followers is not just everything.
yeah.
Sometimes
Thank you
what
for
you
saying that, man.
exactly, sometimes what you make them feel in front of your audience, that is the great, and you have something to share. So that's why I approached
Yeah,
you. And yeah, in future we are going to make it everything fun. अगर
yeah.
if in
I'm
case I
happy.
get a chance to come into your podcast, that would be really fun. I share my own experience, that
Hopefully,
what exactly I have in social media and marketing. And
hopefully,
so
we can make that possible. I need to get up and running with my podcast as well,
mhm,
and so I am honored that I'm here. Thank you for
thank you.
having me.
My
So
pleasure.
for all the people, if you guys had fun listening to this You can find me on Instagram at A Sankarshan Joshi Trip, and you can give listen to my podcast if you like it. Then
Fun having. I
keep
will
having.
mention. I will mention your Instagram and podcast and YouTube video link in my description to make it my audience much easier. क्योंकि YouTube पे audience grow करना is
No,
very
I
hard.
think uh, I think at the core of it all, why you are doing this podcast, you should be very clear.
Hmm.
Because like I think if you are genuinely curious person who likes to learn, that is a very important trait
Hmm.
to have a podcast, because you want to have followers for good content. That's super hard nowadays. And if you want somebody to come listen to you or whatever you do, it's a pursuit of getting better at it. And
Exactly. Exactly.
even
Exactly.
when you don't even when you're not getting something in return, how do you keep doing it? Like your reasons, right?
Mhm.
So if that is solid, then
There are
I
few
wish
things
you
that.
luck, man.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
wish you
There
luck.
are few things like ये for getting followers and exposure is a second part. Like इसमें like getting exposure, that is main part. कि I got to you and you got to me, know about me, right? So वो exposure, becoming friends of creator, वो that is the biggest part. उन creators और उन inspiring person से जो भले अभी बड़ा नहीं कर पाए हों, at least they couldn't have done better. They have ex, uh, what we call it, inspire, or that spark in their side, that yes, I will do it. You and me the same kind of person, that I have something spark in my side, that not today but tomorrow, that is going to be done. Day one or one day, that is going to be done. I have that spark. Huh? The same thing you are doing. So we are going to make a good impact at the end of time. So मैं उन person से जुड़ के, उनकी stories जान के, वो उनकी experience जान के, सारी चीजें, you know, this thing can
Being a
continue.
part of the process.
Exactly. So अभी भले ही छोटे creators हो, maybe if I have experience, अभी मैंने जो किरण के साथ किया था, I shared on my LinkedIn profile. I got good interaction over there. और फिर जो मैंने वीडियो डाले, I share to my LinkedIn people जो मुझसे connected हैं, उनको मैंने DMs में सबको भेजे. And yeah, they were so happy. And few of them, they asked me to be my podcast guest, and so I got that's really great. And abhi next week may I have a lined up podcast guest, and he is a good person. He is in Instagram and social media marketing person, and he also started his digital marketing agency. So yes,
Okay.
उनको he is going to be our next podcast guest, maybe in the weekend. मेरा ये क्या है, in weekend एक person, that's enough. So that is what I क्योंकि weekends Saturday Sunday मेरी छुट्टी रहती है after office.
No, I think when you want to do something right with your life, or when you want to pursue something, there are so many things that you'll have to confront, like self doubt. Like if you want to do videos, do I look good in videos? Is my communication skills to a point where people will listen to me? Like there are so many things, self doubt, that you'll have to overcome, right? And
Right.
I really respect that you didn't let any of those get in the way. So, like initially when I started my podcast, like 1 or 2 episodes, I was very critical. Not a lot of people like to listen to their own self, right? And when
Hmm.
you're listening to your own self, you can find a lot of flaws. Like, why am I repeating this word these many times? Like, why did I
Exactly.
say this in this tone? For you to keep thriving, for you to keep doing whatever you're doing, overcoming all of that, accepting, you're still doing, right? So I really respect the hustle. And
Mhm.
also, you record podcasts on the weekend, so do I. Like, whole week we are working, and weekends we are doing the podcast. And there is no concept of weekend, if I must say, to us. Like weekend we are working, weekdays also we are working. Like unless we don't actually enjoy what we are doing, there's no motivation for us to thrive.
Right, right. And it is hard sometimes. You know what? With the Kiran and also, I would say, वो मेरे अंदर वो रहता है कि यार नहीं करते just because I wanted to go for the fun and sleep या सब कुछ चीजें, but ये था कि now I have to do it. I have to do it. Because हमारे अंदर होता है ना comfort या comfort zone वाली चीजें. The same thing was driving me to कि यार अब नहीं करना है, मना कर देता हूँ एक बार कि यार कल कर लेते हैं, बाद में कर लेते हैं.
सो ये चीजें मेरे अंदर आ रही थी विद द किरण एंड ऑल्सो यू, सेम चाहिए। बट नहीं, फिर नहीं कर लेते, कुछ भी हो लेट्स डू इट। जब चीजें करने ये कहते ना कि जब आप जब कोई में कूद तालाब में कूद जाते हो तो तैरना आपको हाथ पैर मारना ही पड़ेगा, मार लेते हो। सो जब तक आप कूदे नहीं होते हो तब तक, या तो जो ठंडी वाले जो पानी में आते हैं तब तक नहाते नहीं है तब तक ठंडी लगती
Yeah.
है जब नहाने लगते हैं तो वो डालते रहे हमेशा। तो वो चीजें मेरे साथ हो रही थी जब तक मैं,
See, that's very important.
आप आई डिड नॉट स्टार्टेड पॉडकास्ट विथ यू रिकॉर्डिंग, तब तक ये हो रहा था कि नहीं यार नहीं करते नहीं करते हैं नहीं करते हैं बट जब स्टार्ट कर दिया खत्म होने का नाम ही नहीं लेता हमारा सो I'm now I'm loving it.
So the thing is, when anyone wants to start anything, anyone who want to do something, they get very critical. Like, you know what? I'm not good at it. Let me not do this. Or start karna bahut mushkil hai. Like that starting it is very hard. I think once you do that, you eventually you're gonna suck at it.
Perfect.
Like I know that I'm still in a process of, I'm very raw, and I like that about myself. Even when you listen to my podcast, it's, I don't know how that podcast is gonna go because I don't have anything in my mind. It's mostly how I take it and how the guest responds also, and my ability to take the conversation, and I need to trust that. For that to build, you're gonna have to suck.
Right,
Like,
right.
you're gonna have to be bad at it. Like, see, you gonna have, like, initially when I started, like, my camera is not good. How do I start it? Like, I don't have a microphone. How do I start it? You need to start with what you have, right? Start with what you have where you are. I read this quote before I started my podcast. Like, I was thinking about it, I was procrastinating while I was going through it. I read this quote, like, start with what you have where you are. And it just hit me, you know. I was like, man,
Right,
like,
right.
it just hit
Everybody
me. And
start with
then I
zero.
started.
Everybody start with zero and scratch जो भी कर ले, चाहे कोई भी हो, चाहे आज हम गैरी वी की बात करें, संदीप मैसूरी की, डॉक्टर विवेक बिंद्रा की, they all started with zero subscribers and उनकी अगर पुरानी वीडियोस देखते हैं तो they were just like us, शायद हमसे भी खराब थी चीजें इनकी right, but now when we see them right now, so they are the pro in their field. So everybody start with zero, everybody start like phone camera से recording. तो यार at the when we मेरा the same thing I also believe जो है I'll do it, I'll keep going. Once I started making things better or getting money or somewhere, I will invest into it. And by the time I'm investing into it, and मेरा रिंग लाइट यहाँ पे है, that's why मेरे फेस पे यहाँ इस साइड पे थोड़ी सी लाइट है, you can see like अब मेरे हाथ पे लाइट है तो इसको अभी छोटा वाला रिंग लाइट है बट आई एम गोइंग टू बाय अ बड़ा वाला जो आता है रिंग लाइट। सो
People
बस
who are listening to this, they might find all of this like, why are we even talking about this? The reason why you are mentioning all the specific things is that, like, see, Baisab, these are the things I have, and I'm making best use of what I have. That's what you're trying to say, right?
exactly,
Like, anyone, anywhere you are, start with what you have wherever you are.
it's
That's
all about जुगाड़
that's what you are.
it's all about जुगाड़, ये सारे जो whatever things I'm doing, all things are जुगाड़ू
Hustle, bro. Hustle. It's respect the
exactly.
hustle. It's all that goes behind the cameras that not everyone sees. And I've been there, and
Hmm.
I've done all of that. Like, a lot of, so many times my camera has given me a lot of problems. Sometimes the recording has given me problems. Sometimes I remember wearing this exact shirt and I recorded a podcast at 1 a.m. 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. That was the only time the guest was available. And that guest who came didn't come with the right mindset. Like, I think mindset, in the sense, they were not in the state to do the podcast. Like, they were high, so they, like, it didn't go as planned. Like, my effort from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. I was up like whole night. I recorded 2 hours of the podcast, and then I couldn't use it. So, like, nobody will see all of the effort. You know how much it goes. I record on Zoom. I
Hmm.
record my microphone audio separately. I edit both of the audios. I edit the video. I create thumbnails. I I do everything and then I put it.
That's
It's
that's really hard to वैसे एक चीज
exactly
है।
where you started, man. Exactly where you
Hmm.
started. Like, eventually you're gonna, the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's your
Exactly,
second
exactly.
it's your second episode, man.
and the most
not
important
to
thing,
compete with
the
people.
most important thing, my audience, जो मैंने अभी podcast कल ही episode डाला है Saturday को, so it got 5 plus subscribers through that podcast I got, and it got around 60 plus something views right now. Hey, less है for us, it is less, but yeah, at least my audience is listening, and 10 hours हो गए उसकी जो वॉच टाइम होता है, 10 hours ये लिसन किया गया है पॉडकास्ट को, दैट इज ह्यूज, एंड चीजों को देखें.
Are
या
you on audio streaming platforms?
मैं स्पॉटिफाई पे ये मैं यही सेम चीज है, आई पुट ऑन स्पॉटिफाई एंड एप्पल पॉडकास्ट एंड दिस मतलब पॉडकास्ट प्लेटफॉर्म्स, सेम थिंग.
Good, good, good.
The same thing is going, that is a podcast, and इसकी ऑडियो भी जूम पे बनी जाती है. And I've been doing podcasts since it's been 4 years something, 3 to 4 years. But I was on consistent. मैं consistent नहीं था चीजों पे. So yeah, that's been. मैं कोई भी चीजों पे consistently post नहीं किया हूँ. But it's been 4 months जो मैं constant हूँ, और चीजों LinkedIn पर I've been also creating posts. It's going to be a 1 year long. जो LinkedIn पे मैं
Just check
continuous
your. You can
LinkedIn.
start